Hello, this is Conan Stoops, and in today's Lumion Legacy HTUC video, we're going to be talking about how to use and counter Behemoroth. Basically, we're going to be going over the ways in order to know how to team build around it by listing its counters and checks and teammates, as well as giving you info on their roles and sets in order to know how to use Behemoroth in your battles. So the role that Behemoroth is going to be playing in your matches is a very simple question to ask, and we can answer this question with its base stats. The first thing you want to know about Behemoroth is that it has a pretty bad range defense. Opposed to the like of its bird titan counterpart, this range defense is not going to be very high. However, it does keep and retain the same energy and speed stats, so at least you have that, still having a pretty decent speed tier, outspeeding the likes of Soulburst Raptidon, and of course letting yourself speed tie Holomantic. And then energy 90, this lets you be a pretty solid mon at using a lot of your hits. Then of course your melee attack stat is 150 as well, your melee defense is 100, while your HP is 115, giving you some very natural good melee defense bulk, so you can potentially invest into this and take super effective hits. Even non-super effective hits, it has chances at living, such as Tatab, if you invest into somewhat of a bulky set. And then your melee attack, of course, being your highest stat at 150, making you hit really hard, even if not running Brawny. So basically the best thing you want to know is that it's just going to be a strong wall breaker with great setup potential. There's a few things I want to talk about Behemoroth, and that's the fact that it does hit pretty hard, but you still want to have some speed control, which we're going to be talking about in the set section. So the first set that I will be talking about is a Keel set, shoutouts to him, and our ability of choice is going to be Landborn. Landborn here is pretty solid overall. I would not recommend All-Seeing, not because it's bad, but it gives you 100% accuracy Hypnotize, so if you're willing to grind for a secret ability, legendary Fossil Lumion, then go right on ahead. Then your personality is going to be Nimble. This is to outspeed many of the stuff under you that is also running Nimble. The moveset of choice is going to be Earthquake, Primal Slash, Timber Thrash, Bulk Up. If you are running a Gargoyle defense or another Earth type, then your Earth or your Expert Onslaught would just be 100 base power, which is like, okay, that's a stab upgrade. Your item choice is going to be the Amulet, so you can take as much hits as possible while you're bulking up. This also pairs really well with All-Seeing, so you can hypnotize them, get the HP back that you took then when they hit you, so you can set up along gaining HP. And then your TP spread. I would run 176 speed with the Nimble personality to outspeed Nimble Raptidons. Your melee attack is 200, your 4 energy, just for the 4 energy rule, getting up to 250, then 128 TPs, and the HP is just leftovers, making your HP odd for Icicle Traps and Spite. Other than that, you can also have this boot set, which is admittedly pretty weird. I don't really like boot sets with Lumions below the base speed tier of 90. However, this works out pretty well because your personality with Brawny, even if you're not running Nimble, outpaces the likes of Nimble Zulongs, which is admittedly pretty strong. And when you look at the Lumions above you, such as Ikazune, Jalusa, Nevermare, Zulong, Glaciadia, you can all hit those things super effectively, which can help get the jump on a lot of teams. Your moveset is going to be Earthquake, Primal Slash, Timber Thrash. Next up, you could run Driving Force or Expert Onslaught. Expert Onslaught is admittedly pretty niche because then you wouldn't even run Earthquake at that point, so then I would really run Driving Force. If I recall, there's no other moveset you would really want. You can maybe run Hypnotize, just so you can like hypnotize something that you can't even hit very well, which will be explained in the counters and checks section, and then just go into something. That is the only way I can really see that ever happening. Your item is of course the specialty boots, and then the TPs. This is very simple stuff. There's not a lot of things you'd really want to ever use with the TP spread. So with that out of the way, let's get right into the counters and checks and teammates for Behemoroth. The counters and checks for teammates for Behemoroth is very simple, as you pretty much want to run the likes of ice types and plant types. Nevermare and Tatab is very good. Fun fact, Behemoroth does not one-shot Nevermare, even if brawny, so unless it's boots, Nevermare can get its Rachel plushie up and then it can start hitting it, which is admittedly very strong. What you can also do with Nevermare is by bulking up, because depending on if it's faster than you or not. If it's slower, you can bulk up once, get +1 melee defense and then +3 melee attack. Chiento Barbadger, you want to attack this Lumion when it's pretty low, around 50%, so you can KO it. Tatab, same story, Inglishadia outright KOs it no matter what. Then here are the counters in terms of defensive stuff. Tongilin, Obsidian, Soulburst Florant, Yursnack, and Lashent, they all do very good jobs at stopping this Lumion. Other than that, we can also talk about offensive and defensive teammates. These are also very simple. Some things that I would like to run here is Nobadius, the Shadia, the Fusion Dragons, they do very well against many of the melee walls. Landtorch also just hits all of the walls that I've said super effectively or hard neutrally. Soulburst Raptidon, still one of the best ranged wall breakers in the game, so it forces those melee walls out. And then Dragoon is mainly for the Leshant, Yursnack, and Obsidian matchup. Then you have Phasenaut or Soulburst Krakaloa that you could also run. If you do not have like a strong offensive wall breaker that I've said in the previous few seconds ago, then Phasenaut is very solid because it can tase, it can get rid of their abilities so they don't do any damage. Then it can just pivot in and out, going into something stronger that can actually deal with them and would take the hits from their abilities. And then Soulburst Krakaloa is also another great option, as it can also Raging Flame, and it does very well against most of the answers said. So with that out of the way, let's get right on to the conclusion. One thing before the conclusion, I did forget Seer Knight and Yursnack can also be decent teammates. Seer Knight mainly does pretty well against most of the stuff that offensively checks Behemoroth. Mainly the likes of Nevermare and Chienta. You would have to be terrifying to stop Chienta. Yursnack does pretty well against Tatab, which is pretty solid. Seer Knight also does well against Glaciadia. So these two, in terms of checking offensive checks, then I would run these two if you really want to. Then we're in the conclusion. In my opinion, I think Behemoroth is honestly not that worth it. Right now, Behemoroth is pretty much outclassed in most ways when you're comparing it to Colossotrops. Colossotrops, of course, it does have an arguably worse defensive typing, and it has a worse speed tier. Speed tier doesn't really matter if you're pairing Colossotrops up with Baffle, so Colossotrops has the better coverage, it can hit a lot harder on turn 1, and it really isn't reliant on an ability that's just like Landborn. Landborn only affects one of its moves, while Colossotrops get a massive damage boost with all of it. So while I do think both are pretty solid, I'd just say that Behemoroth, at least in my opinion, is probably not as good as Colossotrops, but let me know what you think. Like and subscribe if you want to see more, and of course this is Con and Stoop signing off to remind you that Zulong is still a dumpster fire.